Hello again, and this is yet another one of those, ooh, I should share this kind of moments. So, as usual, public service announcement, watch your motion sickness. Rather, don't watch it. So here we are with a kilt in the Forbes reproduction, weathered Forbes tartan, and in no particular order, let's take a look at the style of pleating that the client chose. And this was a case when the client and I were sitting in person, so I was watching that person out of the corner of my eye as I showed them all the various ways to pleat it, to the set, to the white line, to the double black, to the division between black and brown, the division between, this is actually blue and brown, and gray. And this is the one they chose. And in the past, I would have been kind of pushing them to make a different choice because, of course, we have, it's entirely horizontal. There's no real vertical element at all beyond the shadows of the pleats. But this is what they chose. And the customer is always right in matters of style and taste. And frankly, it's starting to grow on me because every time, and I've said this before, every time we examine all of the different ways to arrange the pleats, we also take a look to see what's going to happen when they move. And when they walk, you got this nice somber gray. When they walk, they're going to get a flash of dark, and it's going to be kind of nice. The second thing is, second point, when the time comes when you're taking out basting, I really tell people don't use anything sharper than your fingernail. You don't use point of scissors or anything else. And this is a seam picker from my late mother-in-law. It's a simple piece of bamboo that's been sharpened and varnished, and it works a treat. So there, you could get you could go for an exotic piece of tropical hardwood or a sliver of bone, or you got some antique ivory. It could be really special. This works a treat, and again, I keep it and use it in memory of her. Third is just an observation about the selection of color, and I've mentioned this color of thread, and I've mentioned this elsewhere, but I'm placing increasing reliance on the use of olive drab thread, the color that's about the color and darkness of a cocktail olive, because it just disappears against everything. Looking again, how I've arranged these buckles, instead of, what'll happen, and what I've been doing for years, is I would start sewing at one corner, usually, any of these corners, and then start sewing in a clockwise direction. But if you starting in a corner, sometimes would push the whole thing a little bit off a bit. So what I do now is I start in the center, I line this up correctly, and it's usually for the left hip buckle, it's one pleat behind the buttonhole. We need that extra space. We don't want it too close, or we certainly don't want it overlapping, which I see far too many times. But to keep it in location, I'll start sewing in the middle, because in this case, as you see, we've got a handy reference, the transition between blue and blue-black. So by starting in the middle and sewing down that line, I'm precisely locating it. Then getting there, then I go around. And I did the same thing on this side, but as you can see, it's a tiny bit off here, and sometimes that happens because this is in a straight line, but this is a curve. So sometimes I'm going to allow myself that millimeter that it is off. Final point to show you is in order to achieve this effect of pleating to the gray, and specifically, the specific instruction was to pleat to the gray, blue, let's just call it gray, to the gray immediately to the left of the black as we're looking at the kilt from above. So there and there, but these distances, there, A to B is wider than B to A. So that creates an effect on the back, which I almost said unfortunate, But in the past, I have castigated other kilt makers for stacking the pleats on the inside, because it makes it a little more, can make it quite a bit more difficult to press. But I'm going to confine my censure from now on to those people who have an uneven, to whom the pleats are uneven across the back, that you've got like a super wide one with a couple of pleats hidden underneath it. Because I noticed that I was doing this, double stacks, and then I stopped and then went back with a spare piece of cloth and tried every way I could think of to arrange those pleats to have a more equal spacing, but I couldn't do it. This is the solution. This is the way it has to be, and I console myself in that they're even. Even if they're slightly unconventional, they're even. So here we are, getting very close to completion. I just have to sew that and that down, and then I'm going to put in the lining. And in this case, I think I'm going to choose a black lining, because my navy blue and my bottle green, my rifle green, really would be the best choice for this. So there we go. We've learned a couple of new things, you and I. So I'm going to wrap up. Actually, I'm going to snip that while it's in front of me. There's really nothing else for me to get rid of. Cool. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here with the video and then get back to work. Once again, motion sickness commencing now.